listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name is Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And by Dominic on the full pod this week, which is very exciting.
Yeah, good to be on the show.
No Neil.
That delayed response was all you needed to know, really, wasn't it?
No Neil this week. Let's do moments of the week. Paul, what have you got for us?
Can you? Sorry. Can you go to Dominic first, please?
Yes, Dominic.
I've got a moment in mind. So we scored 4 goals at the weekend, but the moment I'm picking didn't result in a goal. It was Tom Bayliss just playing a wonderful reverse ball in the first half to McNulty. Everyone thought he was going to shoot. No one saw it coming. And it was very nearly a goal. I think if Johnson Clark-Harris had got a touch on the end of McNulty's cross/shot there, it would have been an absolutely brilliant goal. And I think it just summed up just how much better Tom Bayliss is than the rest of League Two at the moment. It was just a moment of class.
I had a funny thing with Bayliss because there was the middle part of the season. In fact, most of the season it's only in the latter part of the season that I've been in terms of many home games. And when I saw him, he tended to be either on the right or that I didn't quite see the same level of performance that people had seen. And it's been since Mansfield, where he's mainly been in the middle and just game in, game out, is getting better and better and so much more dangerous. At Grimsby, he was taking the piss at times, especially in the second half, where he's starting to build tricks into his game, and you just think, you're not 18. That must be a fake ID. The confidence and the aggression that he plays with is just on a different planet, isn't it, from the rest of League Two?
Yeah, and it's just that I think sometimes the only criticism you can have of him is at times he'll get into the final third and he'll get in a really good position, and you can kind of see him start to second guess himself a little bit because he seems like such a natural footballer. That's when you can see sort of the gears whirring in his head. And there's been a few times this season where he's gotten right to the edge of the penalty area and you can tell he's thinking, oh, do I pass, do I shoot? And he kind of fluffs moments like that. But he's just adding that level of decisiveness to his game now, definitely in the Crewe game and the Grimsby game as well, where, yeah, it's scary good.
Okay, Paul, have you cleaned up the poo that your child has done on the floor or whatever similar thing has happened?
Yeah, I was asked how to spell tortoise, which
by your daughter or your wife?
Wife. Daughter's in bed, long in bed. Wife, the other massive menace in my life.
Hi, Jane, if you're there.
Yeah. Two things. Yeah, Dominic has nailed one of my moments of the week. My other moment of the week was we have 2 very special youngsters in our side. And I think
Michael Doyle?
For me, I'd probably give Bayliss Player of the Year just for I think if he hadn't come to the fore when he came to the fore, I don't think we'd be in the playoffs at the moment. I think he has really dragged this team forward and made us far better than we were before he got into the side. In terms of the way we play and the way that he interacts with the midfield and the attack. But I also think Shipley's pretty special. And if other players we've had over the last couple of years had put in the ball that he did for the first goal, people would be absolutely raving about it. And it's an undefendable ball that he puts in. And it's just, if Maddison had put that in, I think a lot of people would be praising it to the hilt. I think we've seen how many free kicks we've had in that position over the years where the ball's been ballooned out of play or into the keeper's hands. And it's just inch perfect for Vincenzi to score. And I think Shipley's another player who deserves. I think we're a better side when he's in it. I think recently, as he's been in the side, our results have improved. And I think when he didn't play against Barnet, we didn't look as good. We didn't look as cohesive. And I think he is massively a part of the run of form we're in.
I just think I think it's really worked in a weird way. Shipley and Vincenti aren't really wide players in a 4-4-2, are they? But curiously, they are offering so much more than just what you'd expect of a player in that position. Like what they're offering is so different that it's really unconventional, but it's just working, isn't it? And it's functional. I'm really, really enjoying it. I think Shipley has been a bit underrated this season. I think he's been really, really great, hasn't he? Moment of the week for me, I'm going to go for sincerity for once. The second goal on Saturday is one of my favourite Cov goals that I've seen in such a long time. That for me is football perfection. I thought the way that Bayliss monsters that player off the ball is just unreal. And then Doyle's speed of thought to see the opportunity and nick the ball, and then the pass is brilliant. Arguably the best bit of the entire thing is Johnson Clark Harris's control. That's such a good control on like the shoulder chest to knock it far enough in front of him, but that directly in front, and then just the composure to play the pass, which isn't the hardest pass in the world, but for him to have the foresight to not just be selfish and try and shoot, and then for McNulty to just tap it in. It was so ruthless, it was so undefendable and so fast. The point where we won the ball to the point of it being in the back of the net just seemed like the blink of an eye when it happened. We talked a lot last week about how you want football played and the different ways that people see things. But that, for me, was just a pinnacle of what I wanted to see. Because you just imagine being on the other side and just being like, well, what were we meant to do about that? There's just nothing we could have done, apart from be a bit more robust in the centre of midfield. I really loved it. I do want a very, very honourable mention for... bearing in mind that I thought, and we'll talk about this when we get into the game, obviously, I thought Grimsby might be the worst, or certainly one of the worst teams I've ever seen live. But... the worst moments of the game were reserved for us. We, on a couple of occasions, tried to walk the ball into the back of the net for them. But let's hear it for a Ryan Haynes sliced clearance that goes over his head and into the box. Lee Burge making an absolute hash of the punch. Dominic Hyam running into him as he tries to get back in his goal. And it's only Rod McDonald saving us by clearing it off the line. How phenomenally inept would you have had to have been in Grimsby's case not to have made more of that absolute catalogue of errors? But they were horribly bad, weren't they, Paul?
They were. But I think you also... we'll get on to your moment of the week again in a couple of minutes.
You're going to say it's shit, aren't you?
No. I mean, I think one thing we'll talk about Grimsby very briefly for a second, then we'll go back to them a bit later. One thing I think we've definitely learned from the Grimsby thing is we have to be careful about how we bring Carl Baker in if we do, because Gary McSheffrey's had a pretty similar season to Carl Baker. In fact, he's been fitter and just hasn't been picked up by anyone. And you could see after 30 minutes, they were basically playing with 10 men. And that's not a criticism of anything to do with McSheffrey. It was just a case of he was blowing out of his ass. He was clearly not fit enough. And after about 30 minutes, he went for a challenge with Bayliss. And Bayliss just brushed him aside. And you could make the argument, he's half his age. But it was just, he just wasn't physically capable of holding onto the ball. He was shot. And the fact he was still on the pitch after 90 minutes, I think, says a lot about where Grimsby are. And as you say, I mean, I think they'd lost their previous or hadn't won in 17, and their away form was horrendous.
They'd lost 8 consecutive away games, I think, yeah.
And conceded 3 on more than 2 occasions. They're a bad side. And for 54 minutes, it was relatively... We've shaded the game, but it was probably 60-40 in our favour for the first 54 minutes. As Dominic said, in the first half we had the chance where Bayliss played McNulty, which he probably could have done a bit better. We had another long-range shot for a free kick that Shipley put into the keeper's arms. We had a couple of other sort of Bumble-type efforts.
Well, McNulty should have done a lot better with the one that was going wide anyway, but deflected wide, where he was played in.
Yeah, so I mean, we didn't particularly excel in the attacking third. I think also people tend to forget that because of how poor they were, Grimsby had a couple of chances. They had 2 free headers from corners, one of them which they really should have scored with. The guy was about 8 yards out, free header, and it was so bad that I think people have forgotten they even had that chance. So for 54 minutes, it was another sort of Coventry home game where it wasn't that exciting. And then, the only other thing to note was right before the 54th minute was one of those strange occurrences where Grimsby were breaking on us. Ryan Haynes was out of position, and they played the ball through to their right wing channel, and their striker sort of went and then realised he was offside and stopped. And is it Dembele, the winger?
Yeah.
He came from about 20 metres onside and was clearly onside, and the linesman flagged for the striker who had given up, and you were like, okay, I'm glad we got away with that one, but that was just bad refereeing. It's just, surely the whole point of this now is until someone makes an effort to get to the ball, you keep your flag down. And that would have been very interesting if they'd have got away with that, but they didn't. And then we had an attack. It filtered out like it does. They had an attack. The guy was bursting into our half. He had options. He had about 5 options. Then he had 4 options, and he kept holding on to it. And then his only option was to give the ball to Bayliss, who just took the ball off him. And as Joey's gone through the rest of the goal from there, it was brilliant. It was exactly what you wanted. Yeah, I mean, it was quick counter-attacking. The way that we just sort of utilised the fact that Grimsby were completely out of shape because they were counter-attacking on us. I mean, it's difficult to say because, I mean, Grimsby were awful. And if that guy had any intelligence, he would have played the ball through because their striker was basically through on one-on-one if he'd have played the pass. But he was that awful that he just didn't do it. And we countered and we completely annihilated them. And then for the next, 35 minutes, I think if at 2-0 you'd have said, Grimsby, you can go home now, they'd have all taken it. I've never seen a team just, as a group, throw in the towel. They just didn't look like they knew they weren't going to get back into it. They knew they weren't going to score 2 goals. And they just didn't look like they were that interested. It could have been, if we'd have won 6-0 from that point, it probably wouldn't have made any difference to Grimsby. They just weren't at it. And I think Sheffrey's come out in an interview today and said basically it was like a training session. And it was just, there was nothing there. But we've had that in the past and not capitalised. And McNulty got his second from an amazing save from the keeper who tipped the initial, I think Shipley put in the corner. I can't remember who did the original header. Then McNulty sort of flicks it on from like a yard out. The keeper manages to push it on the bar. And then McNulty scored the header. And then Carl Reid came on and does what he does against really poor opposition, where he gets the ball and runs a lot and put in a couple of really nice crosses.
Mean. Why are you so mean? Why are you so mean?
That's what he does.
He came on and did well.
Mean?
He came on and did well.
He did well. He did well. Yeah, I'm not saying he doesn't, but that's what he does, isn't he? He gets the ball and he runs around a bit and he runs down the line.
So mean. You could have just said he came on and did well.
But that's what he does. He comes on, he runs fast down the wing. It's like, and he puts in he put in 2 really good crosses. One of them, I can't remember who didn't deal with. Someone should have. Was it Jonathan Clark-Harris should have scored with a header and headed it straight at the keeper. And then he put in another cross, which Biami was interfering with the defenders, not in that way, but. And the ball bounced up in the air and McNulty volleyed it into the back of the net. And from then on, it was like, well, it'd be useful if Biami scored here, and he had a couple of half chances, and the game was dead at that point. If we'd have scored another 3 or 4, it was like the old Simpsons thing. Please stop now, he's dead. I think it was just a case of Grimsby they were shit. I mean, the fact they made a fight of it for 54 minutes, credit to them, but they're desperately a club in trouble. As me and you discussed before kick-off, if I'd have been in charge of Grimsby, they would have played with probably a flat back 7 and 3 in front of them. And it would have been a case of, we know we're shit away from home. The only way you're going to score now is if you score some wonder goal, because we're going to be so defensively rigid and so solid that you're not going to get through us.
That should have been... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and they played 4-4-2 and were completely open. And you were like... Yeah, this is, you're not good enough to play football against us. Your midfield isn't good enough to play against Bayliss and Doyle. You're not good enough players. Why are you trying to have this game of football against us? You're clearly inferior. And once we got on top, that was it.
That should have been my moment of the week, was not the second goal, but was at kick-off going, are they playing 4-4-2? And is that Gary McSheffrey up front in a 4-4-2? Oh, well, let's fill our boots, boys. It like you say, we talked beforehand and said they have got to come here and just try and stifle us, because if they've seen the problems that we've had against teams that come and set up to kill the game, it would make sense. And just a team that were that bereft of form, you've got to think, it's your big mantra, isn't it, that when we've been out of form, what you would do every time is just grind out a 0-0 to try and put some like parity back to, like, start bringing it back to reality so that you've got something to build on. And it did feel like that would have been what they had to do. And then when they didn't, you just thought, why do you hate yourself? What is wrong with you that you why are you doing this to yourself?
The thing is, as I said, you can sort of just have him. I mean, as I felt sorry for McSheffrey, because people were aimlessly booing him. It's like,
no, you
just
can't.
Why bother? Yeah. I mean, it's not like he left in bad circumstances at any point. He's been with us twice. He didn't leave badly on either occasion.
And he's missed a
At the end of the day,
I think I know. I think I know why, although I'm not certain on this. But when he was playing for Scunthorpe against us, we played him at the Rico. I mean, it was the game where he scored a brilliant free kick and got rightly applauded for it. But he also tried to dive to win a penalty in the second half of the game, and that could be the only reason I can imagine why they'd be booing him.
I didn't remember that. Okay.
It was
condemning Sheffrey for diving. It's like, you were all supporting him when he did it for Carve. You can't start moaning when he does it for someone else.
Paul, I want to throw to Dominic, because I feel like you have glossed over quite a lot of, positives of how we played. Dominic, what were some of your highlights in terms of the way that we played or individual performances?
I really, really loved when we brought on Maxime Biamu. Just because it was just... And we just knew in that situation what would Grimsby hate most at the moment, and that's a striker coming on and just winning every header against their defence. And then it was also like, what other thing would be terrible for Grimsby having at the moment? Oh yeah, just bring on a winger who's going to run straight at them. We've got Carl Reid.
So I think you're being negative about him saying running there.
Sorry,
but yeah, I just thought the quality of substitutions that we had compared to a couple of months ago when we were just sort of only really making substitutes under duress, and it was just bringing on another body, really, just to see the game out. To suddenly be in a situation where we can bring on Maxime Biamu, Carl Reid, and Liam Kelly from the bench, that says a lot about our squad depth at this moment in time, and just seems like there's also just like a good balance at the moment in just. There's our starting 11, and we know what we do when we're going to bring players off the bench. I think the only gripe is that the way we're sort of set up with our introductions from the bench, it's not really players who can change a game. You're not bringing on someone who can just get a goal for you. I know like Biamu can do a job to help us get goals, and Carl Reid is someone who can change things up in the game, but it'd be interesting to see how Robbins now would change a game up from the bench if we were 1-0 down with the options we have available. But in terms of having the options available to just close the game down, just completely shut it up for the opposition, we're really well set up for that at the moment.
Yeah, I think for the tactic that we are playing, that system of those three as substitutes, I tweeted the other day that effectively it's like it's a first 14 or whatever it is rather than a first 11, because across the 90 minutes they're all really important in the game plan, aren't they? I think they're all serving to change just incrementally the way that the team is set up in such a way that it manages the full 90 minutes really effectively. And I think that Reid is a player that empirically blows hot and cold, but seems to really, really suit that 20-minute spell up against a tired fullback, doesn't he? And that his crossing seems to have been noticeably better when he's been coming off at that point, presumably because he gets a lot more space because he's got more time. and that he's got an extra second to set himself and put some decent balls in. It's a miracle that we haven't scored off either against in the Luton game or in the Grimsby game, some of the crosses that he's put in, because they've been excellent. And Kelly, again, has, since the Crewe game, which I know is only 2 games, but that he's playing like a man possessed. He's coming on and just causing people loads and loads of problems. I think I've talked about this a lot recently, so I'll try and make this the last time I say it. It's clicking at the moment. You can see what they're trying to do, and it's clicking. Robin's talked about a shift in the players' mentality recently, and I think he's probably right. It does look like a more motivated team, but it also looks like a shift in his mentality to me. Paul, you were talking about the chances that we gave away, and I think we mentioned this as we were coming out. We're giving away more chances because we're a more attack-minded team than we had been previously. It looked to me earlier in the season that the game plan was just to not concede, and then, hopefully we'll score and then it'll be fine. This now looks like there is an element of risk added in to make us more of an attacking threat, and I kind of don't mind giving away a couple of chances, even if it's the odd free header here and there, if it means that we've got more forward thrust to us. I'm really positive about it. We'll lose one game and I'll start being ready to top myself again, I'm sure. But I just think it's been really fun these last few weeks watching Luton, Crewe and Grimsby have been they were all really good games to watch, really fun and really good. Dominic, who else stood out for you?
Well, I'm going to say it. Actually, I'll say first, Dominic Hyman and Rob McDonald continue to be excellent in defence. I have to say, a couple of weeks ago, months ago, when Dominic Hyman looked like coming in the team, I specifically singled him out as someone I didn't think was that good based on his first couple of performances for us, but he just looks really good, positions himself really well, wins a lot, very competitive, doesn't do daft things, and he just looks a really sort of just solid, reliable defender. And Rob McDonald seems to have stepped up his form over the past couple of weeks, and they just seem to have quite a good understanding together. I was going to say, I thought Jack Grimmer was really good. The way he offered himself as an option, which is what you want as a fullback, and we had Ryan Haynes on the other side doing the same thing, which helped ping Grimsby back at times, and also helps Shipley and Vincenti sort of come off their sort of less natural wide positions. So a few times Vincenti getting into the box. I saw Jack Grimmer just defended really well. Good energy, put in a couple of good crosses. That's a good performance for him.
As well, I know there was a couple of times I was going to say it's with the caveat of against the Grimsby fullbacks, and then I was expecting Paul to jeer me, but there was a couple of times where he burst forward, and I was seeing the Grimmer that we were really promised. Like he was just smoking fullbacks and putting a ball like really, really on the front foot, Jack Grimmer. And I think that's where he's really good, is when he really gets his head down and motors. I thought he last couple of games, I think he's been very, very good indeed. I want to talk about Doyler.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was his best game in a long, long time. I thought he was awesome on Saturday, but I do feel like I'm in a bit of a minority on that. I thought he was totally dominant.
Yeah, again, it's always the thing.
You're right. I know what you're going to say, but you're right.
The thing is, it's like I Grimmer did have a good game. He did get forward really well. My issue's always been defensively. I think he's poor when he plays against decent wingers. Against Grimsby, he wasn't up against anyone, or no one of note. No one who actually played even sort of barely well. And it's the same with Hyam. I don't have an issue with Hyam, but I'm not going to... I sort of almost like you can't praise the defence because Grimsby was just so inept. The defence didn't have any real defending to do. They weren't ever challenged. They were never sort of... I mean, I'd say McSheffrey was blowing out of his ass after half an hour. They had 60 minutes up against McSheffrey, who blatantly should have been on the pitch. I'm going to look good against McSheffrey, who shouldn't look good, be on the pitch. I think you've got to put that context on it. Grimsby were shit. Yes, we played well against a really shit side. We did exactly what we needed to do. I think you can almost, in the same way that when you get, if we'd have played sort of Arsenal in the FA Cup and been beaten 6-0, you wouldn't be overly critical of them. I think because you're not, it's almost like all we had to do in that game was win comfortably. we won comfortably. I think you can almost go overboard on praise on the defence. Didn't have much defending to do at all in the last half an hour of the game, other than when Ryan Haynes caused all manner of havoc. There was no defending to be done because Grimsby didn't even try. And it's just sort of, I agree, I think Doyle had a good game, but I think it was the easiest game Doyle's probably going to have all season. He didn't have to actually do anything in terms of what he's actually required to do for the team. And the amount of time and lack of pressure he had on him, it's almost like it was a bit too easy in the second half. I think that's why it's sort of a bit of a... I know what you said earlier, it's like, you said before we started, it's like sometimes with a defeat, you spend an hour sort of going over everything. Sometimes when you win 4-0, you don't, because it's almost a case of everything worked. The system worked. The team worked. Everyone played well. There's almost, in a bizarre way, less to talk about because you only got the context of the game it was in. Dominic Hyam looked fine, but he wasn't up against anyone. So it wasn't like, oh, where does he go if they play this pass, or does he win it in the air? It's like he's up against McSheffrey, wins everything in the air, and the balls on the floor are going to his feet. Yeah, he's looking solid. What will be interesting is if we get into the playoffs, or if we when we play Lincoln and Notts County, that's going to be when we sort of question, or that's when he might need to be even better than he has been. And that's why it's sort of, don't look at the games where we win 4-0 and think really of the defence doing what they do. I mean, go back to the Mansfield game. I thought he played when he came on there. That was a different type of game where he had to sort of be good. Rod McDonald was good in that game. I think he's really shown where he was at the start of the season. I think it's a decent defensive partnership. But I thought that before the Grimsby game, that I've had to do something remarkably bad for me to even comment on their performance against Grimsby. They didn't. They were solid. They did everything. They did the basics well, which is what you want. That's about it, really.
You're the sort of person that would go on a foreign holiday and be annoyed when the sun shines.
No, it's not being a case of being annoyed. It's a case of I can't look at Dominic Hyam and think, oh, he played really well against Grimsby. It's because what I want out of my defenders is to be really good in the games where they have to do a lot of work. He defensively, he wasn't challenged, so he should be okay. Because why wouldn't he be?
They have been crap against crap teams this season, and we've stuck the boot in. I think it's fair to say that when they have, I think that Grimsby were poor, but we were really good as well.
I thought the team played well, and I don't think the defence have played particularly poorly against the poor teams. The defence have been let down by the attackers and against the poor teams. It's a case of against the good teams, the defence have come to the fore, and they've got rightly praised for that. Against Grimsby, it was a case of like the defence did exactly what they needed to do, but I don't think they were particularly tested in that. It's not me being negative about it. It's just a case of that's how it played out. Grimsby was shit. If they'd have had 3 or 4 really good attackers and we played really well defensively and kept a clean sheet against a really good team, yeah, praise all the time. They were playing against a shit Grimsby team. They kept a clean sheet, which is what we said this at the start of the season when we kept a clean sheet at Barnet away. That's not the credit. The credit, the annoyance is the fact we didn't score. When we drew with Colchester at home at the start, or when they went down to Stem End, again, sort of, no point crediting the defence keeping a clean sheet. They should keep a clean sheet. What you've got to look at is the rest of the team. What's really pleasing now is the rest of the team seems to be clicking. We seem to, I think the big thing was I think the Barnet game, followed by the Luton game, was massive for Robbins, because the Barnet game, he got things wrong. He didn't play Bayliss in the central midfield. What he's done after that against Luton, the most critical game we played recently, he got his starting 11 right, and he's kept that starting 11 pretty much in place. Which has made life easier for Liam Kelly, because he's not coming on when it's 0-0 and he's actually got to do anything overly offensive. He's coming in when we're already winning. He's doing the job what we need him to do for that particular situation. I think give Robbins credit. He's actually stumbled on it, or master plan, But now he's actually backing Bayliss in the centre midfield, who's blooming like no one else in the division, who clearly is way too good for the division. And he is someone you got to say, well, maybe if he'd have been in the midfield at the start, or someone of his ilk had been in the season at the start, in the team at the start of the season, maybe we wouldn't have drawn all those games against teams like Barnet, because he does break teams down. He does open up the play with his ability. So, that's why I understand people like Bayliss getting a lot of praise. But I'm not going to spend 20 minutes praising the defence, because they did what they should do. I mean, I said Grimmer had a good game. He put in a really good cross in the first half, which McNulty headed at the keeper. Probably played better offensively than Haynes did. But that's never been my question. My question mark mainly is around defensively. He didn't have anything to do defensively.
We did win 4-0, didn't we?
Yeah, and we played well, as I've said about 10 times. But as I said, with the caveat, against a woeful Grimsby team. Let's hope we win 4-0 against Newport, which is sort of a more difficult game. And then we take that forward. We should beat Yeovil 4-0, because they're shit as well.
Well, probably very good time, unless either of you want to have any final observations about the game, to switch to a live. We're live, ladies and gentlemen, with Dominic for Newport and Yeovil previews. Any final thoughts on the Grimsby game? Perhaps to say it was one of the worst things that had ever happened to them. Any... no?
What,
okay.
Grimsby? I'd be seriously worried if I was a Grimsby team, because, as I said, I've seen some shocking Cov teams over the years. But I can't really remember the team just clearly just giving up the ghost and clearly just sort of jacking it in with 35 minutes to go. That was quite worrying for their management and their fans.
You'd have to think. So they're on 37 points. Chesterfield are one place below them in the first relegation spot, and they're 3 points behind, but with 2 games in hand. I reckon you'd still get reasonable odds on Grimsby going down this season, because that's quite a gap. I know it's not insurmountable, but that with only 2 teams down there, and that I reckon you still get all right money on Grimsby going down. And on that viewing, you've got to think there's no way they're staying up. Chesterfield beat Notts County on Sunday as well, did they?
Yeah.
It's tremendously
3-1.
helpful for us. But you might think... I might have a look at that. Okay, so Newport and Yeovil. Actually, a good time to play both teams, because as weird as League 2 is... you kind of, at this end of the season, don't want relegation-threatened teams, and you don't want playoff teams, do you? You want teams like Newport, who are in 12th, and Yeovil, who are in 18th. Is it a good time to play Newport, Don?
So I've got 3 stats. 1, good for us. 2, less than good for us. So the good stat is Newport have won just 1 of their past 10 games. The two stats which are not good for us are that Newport, none of the current top 7 teams have been to Newport and won, and Newport have only lost 3 home games all season.
That's delish. Don't they draw all their games as well? Isn't that the thing?
Sort of. I mean, they're a side who are sort of very combative, very sort of physical, very sort of focused on getting crosses and set pieces into the box. At the start of the season, they were really just monstering sides. I was looking at their sort of expected goals through experimental 3-6-1, and it was just ridiculous. And I was just thinking it's because they were just so good at getting crosses into the box. They weren't playing amazing free-flowing football, but they were just very effective and knew what they wanted to do, and that's kind of tailed off. But I think the issue for them at the moment is they survived relegation in unbelievable odds last season. I think they were just mounting their comeback round about this time last season. They built on that momentum, and then all of a sudden they're having to deal with teams sort of being happy with taking a point off them. They're now being viewed as a difficult game, and they had difficulties against Crewe last week, where they lost 2-1 at home to them, where Crewe set up not to lose against Newport, and Newport didn't know really what to do with the ball at the feet and how to break down an opponent. So that's why they tend to do better against the better teams this season, including Spurs, by the way. And seem to be struggling over the past couple of months against maybe some of the poorer teams in this division.
Names to watch out for. Frank Nouble started the season really well, didn't he? But he's not. He's dropped off quite a bit from what I can tell. Is that fair?
Yeah, he's sort of number of players for Newport who seem to be struggling for form a bit. Sean Mikulski as well, who had on loan from Bristol City, started the season off in electric form and hasn't been able to pick that up. Patrick Amand, I think, scored most of his goals in the first half of the season. We've got Matt Downey, who's a really good ball-playing midfielder. Again, another one who's dropped off, who is actually playing well for them at the moment. Well, they've got Aaron Collins, on loan from Wolves, who came through their youth system. So he's just come back to pick up some experience, sort of playing as a forwards, sort of wide playing. He was very, very good for them against Luton the other week. He's just absolutely tearing their defence to shreds, and a sort of a direct runner to maybe catch us out on the counter-attack. He's someone we're going to need to contain. And just generally the physicality about this Newport side. Frank Nouble, while he isn't scoring the goals, he seems to have ditched some of his attempts earlier in the season to be, early in his career, to be a flair player. He just seems to be more willing to accept now that he's playing in League Two that actually he's a 6'4" striker, 6'3", 6'4", a big striker, needless to say. And he just seems to be accepting that more. And just the other thing to point out is just how good Newport are from set pieces. Their two wing backs, Dan Butler and Robbie Wilmot, both got excellent delivery. They're both on 5 or 6 assists. Their other leading assister is Ben White, who is a centre back. So quite a lot of their goals have been from flick-ons from set pieces. So that's a big area where they're going to throw. Us got Mickey Dimitri as well, who's a centre back who's on 6 goals for the season. So watch out for those set pieces. Watch out for any crosses they get into the box. It's going to be about how well Hyam and McDonald and the rest of our defence cope with a aerial and physical bombardment.
Very good. Prediction?
So, I mean, as it should be clear, this is a tougher game than just playing an ordinary League Two mid-table side at the end of the season. They're a side that raises their game against the best teams, and this could be the game which, out of the two we got over Easter, where we could go unstuck. And I think this is a game we could lose, just if we're not on it, and if we concede a goal early. Newport absolutely love holding on to their lead, as we saw against the Rico Arena early in the season. I'm going to be slightly more optimistic than that. I'm going to predict a 1-1 draw, but I think our approach to this has to be, we've got to go out and be at our top intensity for this game. Otherwise, Newport can be a team who will catch us out.
Paul, would you take a draw?
No. No, I think they're the sort of team that we should be beating at this point in the season and keep that form going. If we're going for third, we have I can't remember, 8 points behind Wickham or something?
6.
Did it 6? So, I mean, we've got to keep the pressure on. And we've also got to make sure that we keep this. We're now a full victory inside the playoffs. We've got to really sort of hammer this home.
Probably worth mentioning as well that it's 6 points behind Wickham with a game in hand, and a game in hand on Notts County, who are in 4th, but not on Exeter, who are in 5th. So even if
Notts County are out, they're the team who could drop out the playoffs, aren't they? They had a bit of a Tony Mowbray season where they started on 5 and they sort of stayed in the playoffs. Really, even though they've been in sort of indifferent form for a couple of months.
Yeah, them and Mansfield, they've appointed David Flitcroft, and it doesn't seem to have worked out at all.
That was a weird appointment.
Yeah, I think the only saving grace for a team like Notts County or Mansfield is they're probably going to have a few more opportunities to get back into the playoffs and hold on to their spot if they do continue to lose results, because Lincoln and Swindon below them aren't in great form either. So, I mean, this is a game as well where other teams in the playoff positions and promotion positions are playing each other. So if we win this, we're really going to make up ground.
Brilliant. Right, let's go to Yeovil then. So what can we expect from Yeovil?
I mean, their objective this season was to stay up. They looked like probably one of the worst, if not the worst teams, just based on squad strength. There was just a lot of young players, a lot of players with little experience of the Football League, and to be virtually safe at this stage of the season is a pretty strong achievement. It's been based on being good at home. Their away form isn't great. I think they've only won 3 games away from home all season, and basically, as Paul says, it's a game where we're expected to win. It's a game we should win, and I think it's a game we will win. I don't see much about this Yeovil side that should be causing us problems. They've got some quick wingers, so they could catch us out on the counter, but they've completed their season basically, so we should be able to press the issue against them, and it should be a comfortable win.
Notable thing for me about Yeovil's squad is a stunning lack of ex-Cov players. It seems like every other League 2 team have usually got 4 or 5 knocking about, but I can only see James Bailey in there. And even he barely counts.
James Bailey? Pretty boys James Bailey?
Yeah, Hare's James Bailey, of course, yeah.
Wow.
Okay, and so prediction then, comfortable win?
Yeah, I'll go for a 3-0.
Tammy, I'm not familiar with a player that I've just come across now called Lewis Wing. Please tell me that's nominative determinism at play.
Yep.
Is it really?
Yeah, I think he's sort of an attacking midfielder. He's a player Middlesbrough picked up from a local non-league side over the summer to plonk in their under-23s, and he seems to be sort of a bit of a sort of flair player. He scored at least one really good goal from the edge of the area for Yeovil, so he's a tricky player. It's one to watch out for, potentially. And yes, Lewis Wing does play on the wing.
That will do for me. Right, let's do some very, very, very quick questions, and then we will get the heck out of here. Let's start with a question for Dominic from Adrian Wilson on Twitter. Would you rather get promoted via the automatics or risk the playoff final and potential glorious promotion via Wembley day out?
Automatics, mainly because I have a ticket for the big weekend, which is on the same day as the playoff final. So
oh, really?
I don't want to give that ticket up.
Ah, okay. Well, yeah, that makes sense. Paul?
Well, just get promoted. I don't really care. Yeah, third makes life a lot easier. Just get out of it.
If it was a cast iron guarantee that we would go up through the playoffs, I would pick the playoffs. But I've actually got a agreement with a mate of mine who's a Villa fan that if we both get to the playoff finals, we will both attempt to do both finals, which could be interesting. Otherwise, obviously, I'd rather just however it comes. But I still think third will be ever so slightly out of our reach, but never mind.
I think the worry is sort of if the glorious route through the play, it's sort of every team in the playoffs is going to think they're going to have the glorious route through the playoffs. The question is, if we don't go up, who do we lose? I don't think we can risk not getting promoted.
Yeah.
So if it's a choice, it's like, well, obviously there never is a choice. So we've got to wait. Third is coming back towards us. It's still going to take an incredible run of form because we're 5 unbeaten or something ridiculous with 3 victories and 2 draws.
Yeah.
So we're still talking, 9 games left to get in the playoffs. We've still got to win probably about 6 of them. So you're talking over 15 games, winning virtually 9 or 10 of them. So it's still a big ask to come third. But you look at the team, as you said earlier. So you look at the teams we've got to play. Because the bottom 2 are so shit and Grimsby are just only as shit. You've got literally Yeovil who are 18th and safe. As you say, Newport who are 10th basically can't get in the playoffs. So you've got about 10 teams who've got nothing to play for, and we play 7 of them. So it's all about us now. If we continue the form we're in and we beat the teams that we should beat between now and the end of the season, you almost can discount the Lincoln and the Notts County game because they should be irrelevant. It's the other 7, and we're in the perfect opportunity to do that.
Very much so. Question from Stuart on Twitter. What happened to the one that was being recorded Monday night? Simple answer, life. Next question from Carl Bull. Nice to meet Carl Bull on Saturday, and was very unlucky with the half-time kick it for a ticket. Came very, very close. He says, can we play Grimsby every week? No, that's not how it works, unfortunately. Question from Aman Guru. Anyone else more bothered about England under 21 than the national team? Yes, a million times over. It's been gorgeous watching #JM10 chumming it up in the England under 21s, isn't it? And has anyone seen his assist for Dominic Calvert-Lewin and then his little dance celebration with him?
It's a shame that he's not. I mean, if he was playing for a half-assed Premier League club, he'd be going to the World Cup, wouldn't he? I mean, if you play for Man United or Arsenal, you don't have to play 3 times and be going to the World Cup.
I got the impression that little dance set-up thing was like an audition for going to Spurs. I was like, that is the work of a man who is really keen to go to Spurs.
Either that or hang around with Jesse Lingard.
I saw this. Sorry, I saw this week that Jesse Lingard was nominated for a Teen Choice Award for, I think it was like Best Dance Trend for one of his celebrations.
Yeah,
I'm so old.
Yeah, I mean that's about as 2018 as it can possibly get. I think that's everything from the questions. So unless anyone's got any final thoughts, we shall wrap things up, shall we?
Have a nice Easter, everyone.
Yeah, have a nice Easter, everyone. We'll be back next week to talk about Yeovil and Newport. You can get in touch with us at Neil Ampty Show on Twitter or neilamptyshow@gmail.com on email. Dominic, plug Side Sammy blog.
Yeah, it's available at sidewayssammy.wordpress.com. One day I'll buy a domain name. And also on Twitter at SideSammy. Someone's obviously squatting on Sideways Sammy.
Is that really... has that gone?
I think so.
That's unbelievable. I suppose there's not... it's been... Twitter's been up for a while. Paul, where can people get you?
Nowhere. I'm a myth.
Yeah.
I was walking on. We didn't find out the name of the other person we met on Saturday, but we went round and we met lots of people, didn't we?
Yeah, it was quite strange, wasn't it? Yeah, but yeah.
Everyone was loving your T-shirt as well.
Whoever we spoke to in Burger King, thanks for listening. Nice to meet you. Yeah. And yeah, thanks everyone for listening. It's nice, isn't it?
I listen to another podcast now and then, and they always go, give us nice reviews on Facebook and Twitter and iTunes and all that sort of stuff. Which brings me to the greatest moment of all time. If you haven't read it, or Joe will repost it, is the review of someone who loves the show, they enjoy the show, even though they don't like football or Coventry City. And I'd love to know why they listen to it, because, why would you? But Joe will repost that. It's the greatest thing ever, in my opinion.
I still can't tell whether that is Ed Wilson, formerly of this parish, just being naughty, but I'm sure that we'll find out. Yeah, somebody who said that this podcast had too much Coventry City chat in it. It feels to me like that's got to be a joke, innit? Although saying that, they're right. Can't argue with that. There is.
Well, it did say that the hosts have good relationship and they know what they're talking about. So clearly they know nothing about Coventry City or football.
I've just had a quick look on www.neilamptyshow.com where you can listen to the podcast. Do you know what? Neil's done a lovely job of making this look lovely and professional. You're very lucky out there, guys, for the myriad ways that you can listen to this podcast. You can get it on SoundCloud and Spotify, I think, now. Neil's a bit of a genius, isn't he? We probably don't show him enough love for the ability that he's got for getting it out there as readily accessibly as he does. And it's even given that, you'd think that some people would listen to it. We make it very easy for them. That's everything, isn't it? End on a deflated, self-deprecating note. That's showbiz, ladies and gentlemen.
That's how it works.
Paul, thank you very much.
Cheers, buddy.
Dominic, thank you very much.
Cool.
We'll be back next week. Bye.